Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the second week of Art 204, uh, Drawing 1. Let me turn it up just a bit. My name is Kim Grable, and I am your instructor. Um, I want to show you a couple things just to help you along this week. You're working with primarily cubic and spherical shapes. I know that this is probably something new for you. By the way, this is just another Leonardo da Vinci sketch that I wanted to start off with. Week two focuses on value in spherical shapes, like I said, linear perspective, and cubic shapes as well. So, what does that mean? What exactly are we talking about? When we talk about spheres, we're talking about balls, ellipses. Uh, we're talking about round shapes, baseballs, football, not football, basketball, soccer ball. Um, you can set up spherical shapes just about with anything that's rounded, anything from an apple to an orange to a soccer ball. Maybe a soccer ball's not so good. Let's try baseball. It has less delineation of color. Um, Anything that's round is called a sphere. And well, the Earth, for instance, the Earth has a core, as you know, and from that core, you can draw diagonal lines essentially through that sphere, including a horizon line or straight line and a vertical line as well. Now, that kind of shape will help you a little later when we do some linear and 2 point, 3 point, 1 point perspective. Um, this is just an image of um, me drawing a sphere, and I've created the background by simply repeating my strokes with very lightly with a pencil, and then I build with what's called cross-hatching, as you can see right here. Um, so that gives you an idea of how to build with dimensionality with just strokes. You can also, as I mentioned last week, you can use the edge of your pencil and do very soft shapes, not only with just your pencil, but the with the edge of the pencil, you can make a horizon line. With the side of the pencil, you can really indicate softness. And then, of course, you want to use a paper stump or a piece of paper or even your fingers to soften a background. I don't know if I've mentioned, but you have to have some kind of light source that gives you where the the absolute hottest point of a sphere is located. If you say put a baseball in the middle of a lawn today, for instance, at least where I live, you're going to get some very bright sunshine, and it's going to be a little off center and to the upper side of the sphere. Why is that? Because the sun, your light source, is above and probably off to one side, depending on the time of day. And then what's interesting about shadow and light is the shadow is showing you where there isn't very much light, but the light itself actually wraps around the object. Do you see right in here right in this area where I've drawn the darkest shadow, but then I've also got a little bit of lightness right, right below the darkest shadow. And then, of course, this will cast a shadow. This is a really nice little, oh, I guess you sort of keep it to one side, and it gives you the color or the depth of gray that delineates like a cast shadow, a reflected light gray shadow, that remember that wrap of light. So you might want to keep this handy, especially as you draw spheres. Uh, and then there's another sphere with, in this case, a very dark background, a very soft light, and a lot of cast shadow. You've got a dark background. The light is illuminating some of the background, as you can see right in here, and some of the foreground as well. But there's a lot of cast shadow going on here. Um, Now, I want to show you, if I can make it work, um, a video demonstration of a circle being drawn. So let me see if it'll work.
To draw your circle, you're going to start out with nice, long, straight lines, and you're going to use these lines to draw a box. And your box is going to be a square.
One thing I want you to notice, look at her, look at her pencil lead. This is actually the way I do mine as well, is I pull and I use a sharpener, not like a conventional sharpener, but I use a little tiny piece of sandpaper, and I just rub and bring it to a long, elongated point. I sharpen it with a sharpener first, and then just continue to rub until it's really a long piece of sharpened lead. The reason I do this is because it really makes great shadows, and it saves you a lot of work. And I'm all about saving work. So,
right from here, you should be able to tell if your box is a square. My box is a little bit short, so I'm going to drop this down. If you drop it down too low, you can just move it right back up. So our lines are vibrating. There's multiple soft lines for every stroke. And we're going to practice using this stroke for every single thing that we draw. Once you have your square, it should be a nice, perfect square with messy lines. It's okay if the messy lines are messy at this stage. You're going to slice off each of those corners at 45-degree angle. Now, a really common mistake at this stage is to slice off just a little corner. You want a nice big corner. And if you've done it correctly, what you should have are triangles right here, right here, right here, all the way around the outside of the square. If the triangles are all about the same size, you've drawn a good square and a good diamond through it. And if the triangles are all the same size, that means that each segment is the same length. And so you have a stop sign, you have an 8-sided stop sign. So we're going to clean up just a little bit. Keep our lines nice and clean. And I'm going to use my pencil to slice off each of the corners of that 8-sided stop sign. I'm again keeping my lines nice and soft, erasable. So right from this stage, I can start to feel whether it feels like a strong circle or not. This feeling of a nice, solid, round circle, it's easy for our eyes to pick out the shape of the circle from a bunch of messy lines. Whereas if we do a circle like this, it's very easy to draw a warped circle with very thin, neat lines. And it's very difficult to correct at this stage. So what we want to do is we want to have a correctable circle that feels really nice and strong and solid and round. So once we get it to about this stage, you can use your pen style retractable eraser with a nice thin tip and start to clean up all of these lines, lop off all of these corners, and start to make this feel like a nice, strong, strong round circle. If you focus just on one quadrant at a time, it's likely that you'll start to get a misshapen circle. So you want to be moving around a lot, looking at the whole circle a lot, running your eyes all around the entire circle often, because your eyes are pretty good at picking out where the problem areas are.
Okay, so I thought you would really enjoy that because it's such a neat idea to draw a box and a diamond and then continually bring them together until they form a nice, sort of perfect circle. Try it, practice it. Um, it will make a great circle for you. Here's some still lives that either I have done or friends have done. This is a still life specifically with lots of objects in a still life arrangement. This is very, this is very uh, detailed and extremely takes some time and is fairly difficult to do. In your worksheet, you're going to choose three spherical objects, which I would recommend an apple, maybe a watermelon, a baseball, something that is relatively different, I guess. It's the same sphere, but it's different in size, like bowling ball, baseball, and apple. But remember, a still life is groups of objects. Let me show you some more still life images. Now, these are not spheres. These are very detailed with rectangles and spheres. And then again, very simple spherical still life. You've got the 8 ball here, which actually is kind of tough to draw. And then you've got a couple of eggs. If you're doing a still life of very simple things, you could set out a couple of eggs, maybe an apple behind the eggs, and maybe one of those small watermelons, like right back here. Now, the reason I tell you to stack things is because they're going to overlap. Okay. And that creates the illusion of depth. And that's what you want to absolutely do with this worksheet and with this exercises. Now, cubes in linear perspective are, of course, altogether different types of drawings. Um, a cube is a box, a fairly equidistant on all sides box. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can freehand this and get it sort of balanced just as easily as you can a sphere. And this is a great way to do it. Bring first a box for your sphere, and then think about the fact that this box, the cube rather, is three-dimensional. That means it's got to have a horizon line somewhere. Here's a diagonal line that's, let's say this is the horizon line right there, okay? So then as I draw, this would be very, very hard to connect there. So let's say this is 2 point perspective and there's another dot right here. So you'll connect the dots, you'll put a cross point in your box. This is another way to draw a sphere. Um, then just start building toward a with your cube a vanishing point. At some point, if I draw further back and I draw this further back, if I have one point where it all vanishes, it comes to a point, uh, then I will continue to build this until I have a perfectly linear perspective box. And you can see it happening right here. You see that? Don't abandon any of the sides. All the sides have to go to that dot that you have. With your sphere, you can draw and connect all the lines like this. This is another way again. And then bring all of those connected lines together as a sphere. And then it just continues adding dimension, adding shading until you've got a pretty perfectly drawn image there, obviously. You can also freehand cubes. They're easy to do. Vanishing point, that's the horizon line. Horizon line means you look off into space from the ground, and at some point, the sky and the ground look like they come together. That's the vanishing line or the horizon line. To create vanishing points, start with, let's start with this guy. Pretty simple, very square front. Your vanishing point is over here. So basically to draw the side panels, you just draw to the vanishing point. What if you want to draw to this vanishing point? Then it would be a much more extreme uh, angle. So I would start here and draw well, let me try to get this there. Um, I would draw it all the way over here, this one all the way here, and this one all the way here. And where they all come together, and you can see an extreme angle here, for instance, this is 2 point perspective, but where they all come together essentially forms the three-dimensionality of perspective. Here's a more detailed perspective with also, this is a cube 1 point perspective. You've got one vanishing point and you've chosen to draw several cubes. And you can use a ruler or a straight edge or the side of an envelope or a piece of paper folded in half. So don't worry about that too much. To draw a simple cube, let me play this. My battery's about dead, but let me play this for you as well.
Hi, Tom here, and here are two simple ways to draw a cube and add some tone using 4B and 6B pencils. To draw the first cube in a very simple way, just draw an even square. Try to make the uprights parallel with the side of your paper. And then once you've got a square that you're happy with, the next step is to draw a diagonal from the top right corner going in a straight line. And now, whichever angle this diagonal line that you draw is, you need to place two other diagonal lines exactly the same angle as the first one. Then you draw a vertical line, which is parallel to the side of the paper and parallel to the original square. And then you draw a horizontal line, which is parallel to the paper and the original square. And then you have a basic cube. So that is the most simple way, I think, to draw a cube. And I'll just shade it now using some time lapse just to go through the shading. It just takes about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And I used a 4B and a 6B pencil. With the shading, just make sure one side of the cube is light, one side is medium and mid-tone, and one side's dark. And then you can do various shadows as well to create a more three-dimensional solid form for your cube. So after we've done this one, the next one we'll do is a slightly different cube, seeing it from two sides. So we haven't got, it's a cube, but none of the sides of it look exactly square because they're all at angles. Whereas this first cube, the front of it is a perfect square.
I think he went away. Hang on.
Hi, Tom here, and here are two simple ways to draw a cube.
Sure.
Light, one side is medium and mid-tone, and one side's
I think I
dark.
turned him off.
And parallel means lines which don't
There we
get
go.
nearer or further away from each other. So next we need two more parallel lines going the other direction. Next we need to add a third diagonal line, which again is parallel to the first two, and that will show the depth of the cube. But once you've got that third parallel line in, then that will tell you where the next vertical line is. And we need a third line on the right, and that just needs to be a similar distance from the middle line as the vertical line on the left is. And now in this drawing, the last line will be the third diagonal line, which will be parallel to the other two diagonal lines which are going left. So there are three diagonal lines which are all parallel going left, and there are three diagonal lines which are all parallel going right, and there are three upright lines which are all parallel going upright. So again, I'll just speed up the video at this stage and put in some tone. One side light, one side medium, one side dark, and then a variety of shadows and reflections on the surface which is on. I hope you enjoyed these videos and find them useful.
Okay, so one thing that I hope you've noticed is that he was, I thought I would be back right where I was supposed to be. He was drawing a not in perspective cube. His cube was a little more like this. You're going to be drawing in linear perspective, which is more like this, where eventually, if I put, again, a diagonal here and here, eventually they'll meet up. All of these are linear perspective cubes, as are these. And you can see the guidelines here. I want you to see these guidelines, so they will help you a lot. Now, you'll get confused occasionally. Just step back and, try to connect with a horizon line. And the horizon line may be way out here off your paper. That's okay. That's fine. Or your vanishing point, rather. These are your diagonals. And then, of course, where that vanishing point appears is your horizon line. And then some detail drawings that I've done or have a friend that did. Here's some more guidelines for you that will really help you. And then finally, I want to show you a couple of basics in just drawing a simple still life. Grab a few items, household items, whatever happens to be sitting around in your house, and start building your still life, your setup. Find a table maybe, or you could even put it on a chair, like the seat of a chair, anything, any way to hold these objects. And then put a background if you want, but you don't have to. You do, however, you do not want a whole lot of different things in the background being very distracting. So here we have these 4 or 5 objects, got them all arranged. There's some overlays, there's some shadows being cast. Really nice setup for a still life. And then the things you first think about with setting up a still life: what objects, your lighting. Don't have it like a room light that's in the middle of the ceiling. Maybe you use a window or a lamp of some kind. Also think about depth. When you work with multiple objects, set them up so they overlap. It will make it so much more interesting as a composition. Before you start drawing at all, sit and look at your objects. Let me move this so that you kind of get a feel for the basics, the shapes of these objects. Let me show you the first drawing. Uh, there's a sphere in this cup, a half sphere. And then there's sort of like the top of a sphere, another sort of spherical shape, more spherical shapes. Everything has a shape built into it. There's an apple, there's a book or something, and you can see it's a cube, as is this. Don't worry with depth. Don't worry with, when I say depth, I mean shadows. Don't worry with those yet. We're just trying to get the basics down. Then hold your pencil in front of you and check the angles. Make sure, do you know how to do that? You hold the pencil out and you sort of hold it either vertically or horizontally and check your lines and make sure that your lines are working for you. Uh, and as you see, we've got some lines just sort of drawn here, no tracing or anything. Now, these lines are eventually going to go away. You're going to learn that there are no lines, hard lines in reality-based drawing. There's light and shadow. And that's what we'll learn to draw as we get deeper and deeper into the class. So then as you move more and more into the depth of this piece, you're going to do a lot of erasing. You're going to do some softening of those lines. You're going to start indicating what's dark and what's light. And the lighter areas, you're just going to leave blank, really, and then indicate your shadows more and more and more. But do keep it sketchy at this point. And you can stop right here and you're going to be just fine. Because what you're going to do next is you're going to develop these shadows much more developed to the point where you won't see lines, you will see color gradations. Okay. When you take a sketch to the point of realism, then you start using your paper stump, your erasers, your darker leads to really build on this. So this is really the step where you need to kind of stop, indicate your cast shadows and your dark and light areas. And then if you want to stop there and perhaps work it later, that's certainly fine. Or you can go ahead and develop it. But remember, no outlines, okay? As the depth and the detail develop, the lines go away. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. And I will post this. And if you have questions, please let me know. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we will talk soon. Bye now.